Welcome, my fellow door openers, to another fine episode of Doors of the Universe podcast. It has been a couple of weeks since we have gotten together and opened some doors. This is for multiple reasons. Work got a little hectic. The research I did progressively went deeper and deeper, and one thing just clicked, and I thought, well, if I'm going to tell the story of this, and I have to tell the story of this, and I have to tell the story of this, which hopefully brings us to an excellent couple of podcasts coming up here. It's been a fun research. It's been an enlightening research. Definitely always interested in the topic. So what is the topic? I know that's what you're all dying to know, and I'm dying to tell you. And that topic is the thing that the government is afraid of the most. And no, it's not tax fraud. It is aliens and shiny saucers from unknown origins. So initially, when I started doing the research for this episode, I was like, hey, let's do an episode on Project Blue Book. It's one of the earliest government UFO tracking projects that was put in place. But once I started looking at that, and also, it really sucks. So there's a show now called Project Blue Book. So when you start searching online for Project Blue Book, the majority of the stuff you find is related to the show. But if you dig deep enough like I did, you will find more and more information. But yeah, so I was, it started with Project Blue Book, and then it just progressively went further and further back. We go backtracking, so we're going to work our way up to Project Blue Book. Which, yeah, it's really exciting. I learned a lot of new things, which we're going to hear all about in this episode. But first, I would like to say that I did go see Nope. And it was a yep for me. I'm a little ashamed to say I haven't seen Jordan Peele's two other films, Get Out and is it Us or Them? One of them. It's either Us or Them. But either way, no, this was I found it to be very enjoyable. Definitely a twist on that. I guess it was a combination of horror and alien UFO films. But definitely a twist on it, fun twist. I don't like horror movies. I don't go see horror movies. I don't watch horror movies at home. I have to sleep with the light on if I do. So coming from someone with that kind of background and it's worth seeing. It's not super scary. I would definitely qualify it as somewhat of a horror film, I guess. I mean, it's got some jump scares. It's got some. Yeah, it's either way. Nope. Directed by Jordan Peele. Check it out. I thought it was great. I definitely recommend seeing it in theater due to sound and visual effects. But yeah, great choice. As far as anything else going on, as far as I know, Gumbaroo and Colossal Claude are still safe. There hasn't been any updates on any of the cryptid websites or anything that someone has taken them out. As we learn, that happens when I make podcasts, especially about things like the Georgia Guidestones. So, without further ado, though, let's get into aliens, shall we? And well, aliens, the U.S., I guess around the world we got. First thing we're going to be talking about is a little thing called the Foo Fighters. So as you, and I'm a little ashamed myself that I didn't know this already, as much as I was a large Foo Fighters fan in high school. I guess I didn't really look into the background of their name, where it came from, whatever. But it's based off a very old comic book series about a firefighter, and it's the Foo Fighters. It's Foo basically means nonsense, or something nonsensical. But yeah, so we're not talking about Dave Grohl here. We're going to go into the Foo Fighters from World War II. So this is kind of what set off a lot more of a necessity or a want for research as to what's going on in our skies, because if there's one thing the government is afraid of, it is things that can outmaneuver our planes, things that are in our airspace that we don't know what they are, and nobody else claims to either. So, we'll go ahead and start with the Foo Fighters. So although Royal Air Force personnel had reported seeing lights following their aircraft as early as March of 1942, with similar sightings involving RAF bomber crews over the Balkans starting in April of 1944, American sightings were first recorded by crews from the 422nd Night Fighter Squadron stationed in occupied Belgium during the first week of October of 1944. So we're going back to the 1940s. This goes back far, y'all. This isn't new every day. This isn't just something new that's happening. They've been around for a while. So at the time, these were erroneously believed to be Messerschmitt Me-163 rocket-powered interceptors, which did not operate at night. However, the bulk of the sightings started occurring in the last week of November 1944, when pilots flying over Western Europe by night reported seeing fast-moving, round, glowing objects following their aircraft. The objects were variously described as fiery and glowing red, white, or orange. Some of the pilots described them as resembling Christmas tree lights and reported that they seemed to toy with the aircraft, making wild turns before simply vanishing. There you go. We got these strand of icicle lights following planes in the 1940s. This is intense stuff, people. Pilots and aircrew reported that the objects flew together in formation with their aircraft and behaved as if they were under intelligent control, but never displayed hostile behavior. However, they could not be outmaneuvered or shot down. The phenomenon was so widespread that the lights earned a name in the European theater of operations. They were sometimes called Kraut fireballs, but for the most part called Foo Fighters. The military took the sighting seriously, suspecting that the mysterious sightings might be secret German weapons, but further investigation revealed that German and Japanese pilots had reported similar sightings. So we got a decent amount of Foo Fighter sightings from different, like I said, there was the German and the Japanese pilots as well, had reported seeing these balls of light in the sky. Some of the more noted ones are going to be listed here. So there's a sighting from September of 1941 in the Indian Ocean that was similar to later Foo Fighter reports. From the deck of the SS Pulaski, a Polish merchant vessel transporting British troops, two sailors reported a strange globe glowing with greenish light, about half the size of the full moon as it appears to us. They alerted a British officer who watched the movements of the object with them for over an hour. I mean, it's like I've mentioned before, growing up, I listened to Art Bell a lot, which, yeah, there's definitely some wild and out there things that have been reported. I'm sure some people were just attention seeking and some were actually reporting things that they had seen. Either way, it was always fun to listen to it because it covered everything: aliens, cryptids, it just covered the full gamut. UFOs, and I always remember there'd be naval officers who would call in and report seeing things in the skies at night that they couldn't explain. And that's that's something that's been going on forever, and everybody thought that all these people reporting this stuff were maybe had mental health issues. But in reality, as we know, in 2017, the Pentagon released the over 1,500 plus UFO documents. According to, so it's interesting. It's always do I trust the government? Do I not trust the government? Do them releasing this make me feel any more comfortable or less comfortable? No, I think it's definitely very interesting to finally have all these classified. I have all these documents about UFOs declassified, and I have read through a couple of the things just because it's interesting. It is. I'm glad. I feel like I've really went off the rails here, but I'm glad it's out there and that people who in the past have had reports and everything are maybe getting a little more comfort. What bothers me is that we have knowledge of this now, but everything's going on as normal. We have reports of 1,500 plus documents that were classified, declassified now, and the world is just going on as it always has. I don't know. It's just odd to me that, yeah, but I mean, I guess it just shows that, just shows where we are at. Some people don't care, and some people want to know a little more. It's interesting to me that it's been declassified, and it doesn't seem like the world's taking notice of it or concerned with it. I don't know. If it's enough to concern the government, it's enough to concern me that not even concern me, just pique my interest that there are objects in our sky that we don't know their origin. We don't know, and nobody else is claiming the responsibility for it. Either way, let's get back to these Foo Fighters. Enough about me, enough about what I think about the situation. Pilot Officer Lumsden, a New Zealander flying with number 3 Squadron's night flight, encountered 2 amber or orange-colored lights that followed him on an intruder mission over northern France in December of 1942. One light was higher than the other, which appeared to rule out wingtip navigation lights from an aircraft. The lights pursued him until he reached the English Channel. Another pilot from his unit experienced a similar phenomenon the following evening with a green light. The story was eventually published in the Christchurch Star-Sun newspaper's November 4th, 1955 edition. October 13th, 1944, an RAF crew from number 178 Squadron based in Italy reported seeing lights following their aircraft over Hungary during a night raid on, oh my goodness, that's a word. That is the name of a place. Zekesfehérvar with a bunch of tildes over the E's and A's. Zekesfehérvar. Okay. Either way, we could look it up. B-24 Liberator KH-103, flown by Pilot Officer Taylor, was followed by an intermittent red light for several minutes. The squadron had started reporting numerous similar instances as early as April of 1944, and would continue doing so throughout the remainder of 1944 and into 1945. Charles S. Bastian of the U.S. 8th Air Force reported one of the first encounters with Foo Fighters over the Belgium-Netherlands area. He described them as two fog lights flying at high rates of speed that could change direction rapidly. During debriefing, his intelligence officer told him that the two RAF night fighters had reported the same thing, and it was later reported in British newspapers. Career U.S. Air Force pilot Dwayne Adams often related that he had witnessed two occurrences of a bright light which paced his aircraft for about half an hour and then rapidly ascended into the sky. Both incidents occurred at night, both over the South Pacific, and both were witnessed by the entire aircraft crew. The first sighting occurred shortly after the end of World War II, while Adams piloted a B-25 bomber. The second sighting occurred in the early 1960s when Adams was piloting a KC-135 tanker. That's crazy. Think about that. Like, just you're out there in the South Pacific, and it's middle of the night, you're flying, and these balls of light follow your aircraft for half an hour. Like, it's one thing if you like, oh, look at that, there's this thing I can't explain, and it's right next to my plane. 5 minutes later, less than 5. Normally you're thinking, no, this thing is, it's just going to disappear. It's going to go away, whatever, it's gone. So, but no, this is a half an hour. This is a sitcom's length of time for this thing following you. Yeah. No, that's just, yeah, that'd be scary. Very scary. Senator Ted Stevens described an encounter from the time he was a U.S. Air Force fighter pilot in the European theater of World War II, as recounted by Senator Harry Reid. I was flying and there was an object next to me. I couldn't get rid of it. I slowed up. It was there. I sped up. It was there. I would dive. It would be there. I called. Nothing on radar. On December 13th, 1944, the Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force in Paris issued a press release, which was featured in the New York Times the next day, officially describing the phenomenon as a new German weapon. Follow-up stories using the term Foo Fighters appeared in the New York Herald Tribune and the British Daily Telegraph. Richard Ziebart, historian for the nearby 417th Night Fighter Squadron, heard many of the stories directly from the 415th crew members. The air pirates. The pilots were very professional. They gave the report, talked about the lights, but didn't speculate about them. Still, the pilots found the sightings unnerving. Scared shitless was how a 415th pilot described feeling to Keith Chester, author of Strange Company, Military Encounters with UFOs in World War II. Ziebart offered no explanation, only an insight. I think the Foo Fighters didn't show up on radar because they were playing light, he said. Radar had to have a solid object. If there was any bogey out there, the pilots would absolutely be able to tell. Listen up, buddy. They saw what they saw. They know what they saw, and they saw it. All right. I got you, 417th Night Fighter Squadron. At the end of the year, an Associated Press war correspondent, Robert C. Wilson, celebrated New Year's Eve with the 415th. The next day, his story on the Foo Fighters was featured on the front page of newspapers across the country. Other squadrons had seen them, but it was the number, consistency, and impact on the 415th crews, and the fact that a reporter listened to the airmen, that finally prompted investigations into the sightings. In its January 15th, 1945 edition, Time magazine carried a story titled Foo Fighter, in which it reported that the balls of fire had been following USAAF night fighters for over a month, and that the pilots had named it the Foo Fighter. According to Time, descriptions of the phenomena varied, but the pilots agreed that the mysterious lights followed their aircraft closely at high speed. The balls of fire phenomenon reported from the Pacific Theater of Operations differed somewhat from the Foo Fighters reported from Europe. The ball of fire resembled a large burning sphere that just hung in the sky, though it was reported to sometimes follow aircraft. There was speculation that the phenomena could be related to the Japanese fire balloon campaign. As with the European Foo Fighters, no aircraft were reported as having been attacked by a ball of fire. Okay, so the Japanese fire balloon campaign. Let's take a break here and let's talk about that. So this was it was pretty much what I had expected it to be, but I wanted to do a little more research and make sure that it was what I expected it to be. So yeah, in 1944 to 1945, during World War II, Japan launched some 9,300 Fugo balloon bombs at North America. The 10-meter, 33-foot diameter balloons were inflated with hydrogen and typically carried one 33-pound bomb or one 26-pound bomb along with four 11-pound bombs. The Fugo utilized the 220-mile-per-hour winter jet stream to cross 5,000 miles of the Pacific Ocean in approximately 3 days. To control altitude, the balloon used a barometric sensor that would release ballast sandbags when the balloon went below 30,000 feet, and when the sensor registered an altitude of above 38,000 feet, hydrogen was vented from the balloon. The whole mechanism was activated 52 minutes after launch to allow the balloon to reach. The whole mechanism was activated 52 minutes after launch to allow the balloon to reach initial altitude. The final sandbag stations were fitted with incendiary bombs, which were released by the same mechanism. And after the last release, the balloon activated a self-destruct mechanism and released an additional bomb. The balloons were launched in the winter to take advantage of the more favorable winter jet stream. However, this limited their damage potential as wildfires were less likely to catch in the winter. The Fugo balloons inflicted relatively little damage except for one fatal incident in which a woman and 5 children were killed near Bly, Oregon, after they approached a balloon that had landed at the subsequently named Mitchell Recreational Area. The deaths of 6 civilians were the only fatalities caused by fire balloons on American soil during World War II. So I think most of us would say that could be considered a bit of a failure. 9,300 balloon bombs. So I don't know. That's just like the thought of this kind of it just kind of blows my mind thinking that they're using these balloons to travel 5,000 miles unmanned, and using and it's just like the technology too is just kind of surprising to me that it was at that time this was the thing that could be with the dropping of the sandbags and the venting of the hydrogen. The whole mechanism was activated 52 minutes after the launch. But yeah, having a balloon utilizing a jet stream to send 9,300 balloon bombs at North America. And of the 9,300 balloon bombs that were sent to North America, they only had 6 fatalities, and it was a woman and 5 children. Which, that's sad. Don't get me wrong. But the fact that that was the only impact it had with 93, that's such a... We're not the only one. We're not the only government wasting money. Yeah, I wonder... Okay, I have to look at it. It says it was designed as a cheap weapon intended to make use of the jet stream. So, Which, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but it just seems like anytime you're making a bomb, it's going to be semi-expensive, especially when there's 9,300 of them. But either way, I thought that was really interesting. Just a little piece of World War II I didn't know anything about. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of World War II I don't know things about, but just something you don't really hear about a lot. But yeah, the Fugo balloon bombs, 9,300 of them. Crazy. All right. So, some explanations and theories on the Foo Fighters. The 415th Night Fighter Squadron intelligence officer Captain Ringwald sent a report listing 14 separate incidents in December of 1944 and early January 1945 to the intelligence section at X11, so 12. I don't know how do you say 12 Tactical Air Command? I don't know. 12 Tactical Air Command. The unit's immediate superiors at 64th Fighter Wing being unable to offer any answers. Without answers of their own, 12 TAC, Tactical Air Command, requested assistance from their opposite numbers at Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force, SHAEF, SHAEF, in Paris. SHAEF had no knowledge of the phenomenon and asked if the British Air Ministry in London had any information. The Air Ministry's explanation for the Foo Fighter phenomenon was received on March 13th, 1945. Bomber Command crews have for some time been reporting similar phenomena. A few of the alleged aircraft may have been ME-262, and for the rest, flak rockets are suggested as the most likely explanation. The whole affair is still something of a mystery, and the evidence is very sketchy and varied so that no definite and satisfactory explanation can yet be given. Air Ministry DD-I-2 to AC of SA-2 SHAEF 13th of March 1945. Okay. So a group of scientists, engineers, and former high-ranking Luftwaffe officers were questioned about wartime balls of fire reports by the staff from United States Air Force and Europe's intelligence section in the early autumn of 1945. None of the 13 interviewed claimed any knowledge of a German secret weapons program that could have explained the sightings. The author Renato Vesco revived the wartime theory that the Foo Fighters were a Nazi secret weapon in his work Intercept UFO, reprinted in a revised English edition as Man-Made UFOs, 50 Years of Suppression in 1994. Vesco claims that the Foo Fighters were in fact a form of ground-launched, automatically guided, jet-propelled flak mine called the Fuhrer ball, fireball. This device, supposedly operated by special SS units, resembled a tortoise shell in shape, and it flew by means of gas jets that spun like a Catherine wheel around the fuselage. Miniature klystron tubes inside the device, in combination with the gas jets, created the characteristic glowing spheroid appearance of the Foo Fighters. A crude form of collision avoidance radar ensured that the craft would not crash into another airborne object, and an onboard sensor mechanism would even instruct the machine to depart swiftly if it was fired upon. The purpose of the Fuhrer ball, according to Vesco, was twofold. The appearance of this weird device inside a bomber's stream would, and indeed did, have a distracting and disruptive effect on the bomber pilots. Also, Vesco alleges that the devices were also intended to have an offensive capability. Electrostatic discharges from the klystron tubes would have interfere with the ignition systems of the bombers, causing the engines to stall and the planes to crash. Although there is no hard evidence to support the reality of the Fuhrer ball drone, this theory has been taken up by other aviation ufology authors and it has even been cited by some as the most likely explanation for this phenomena in at least one recent TV documentary on Nazi secret weapons. However, others cite the single-source nature of the claims, the complete lack of evidence supporting them, and the implausible capabilities of the supposed device as marking this explanation as nonsense. Yeah, that one does seem a little bit far-fetched. I know the Nazis definitely had some advanced weapon technology and stuff, but this seems to go above and beyond their capabilities for the time. But I did, yeah. Yeah, that one seems a bit far-fetched. I don't know. What do you think? It seems to go above and beyond even the Nazis' capabilities. But who knows? We'll keep tracking away and researching. Another suggestion: St. Elmo's fire, which again, something I did not know it was. Any type of electrical discharge from the wings of airplanes has been suggested as an explanation. Since it has been known to appear in the wingtips of aircrafts, it has also been pointed out that some of the descriptions of Foo Fighters closely resemble those balls of lightning. During April of 1945, the U.S. Navy began to experiment on visual illusions as experienced by nighttime aviators. This work began the U.S. Navy's Bureau of Medicine, BUMED. Project X-148-AV-4-3. This project pioneered the study of aviators' vertigo and was initiated because a wide variety of anomalous events were being reported by nighttime aviators. Dr. Edgar Vanacki, who was the prime flight psychologist on this project, summarized the need for a cohesive and systematic outline of the epidemiology of aviators' vertigo. Epidemiology. I killed it. I'd even stutter on it. I just got right through that word. Yeah, pilots do not have sufficient information about phenomenon. Can we do phenomenon or phenomena? Either way. Pilots do not have sufficient information about phenomena of disorientation, and as corollary, are given considerable disorganized, incomplete, and inaccurate information. They are largely dependent upon their own experience, which must supplement and interpret the traditions about vertigo, which are passed on to them. When a concept thus grows out of anecdotes cemented together with particular necessity, it is bound to acquire elements of mystery. So far as vertigo is concerned, no one really knows more than a small part of the facts, but a great deal of the peril. Since aviators are not skilled observers of human behavior, they usually have only the vaguest understanding of their own feelings. Like other naive persons, therefore, they have simply adopted a term to cover a multitude of otherwise inexplicable events. Edgar Vanacki? Vinace? A-C-K-E? Vinacke? Vanacki? The concept from the concept of aviators' vertigo. It's a bit smug, a bit like other naive people who do not understand their own feelings. They've simply adopted. Yeah, all right, bud. You know what? I agree with you, but you could have said it a little nicer. That's all I gotta say. Eventually, the Army Air Command sent officers to investigate, but their research lost after the war, Chester reported. In 1953, the CIA convened a panel of top 6 scientists familiar with experimental aviation technology to determine if the lights constituted a national security threat. The Robertson panel, named for its chair, Caltech physicist Howard P. Robertson, offered no official conclusion. The Robertson panel cited Foo Fighter reports, noting that their behavior did not appear to be threatening, and mentioned possible explanations, for instance, that they were electrostatic phenomena similar to St. Elmo's fire, electromagnetic phenomena, or simply reflections of light from ice crystals. The panel's report suggested that if the term flying saucers had been popular in 1943 to 1945, these objects would have been so labeled. Amateur psychologists, military aviation buffs, and conspiracy theorists offered explanations, but none that the airmen found credible. They didn't believe that they were hallucinating because of battle fatigue, and because the lights caused no damage. The pilots doubted that they came from remote-controlled German secret weapons. St. Elmo's fire, a discharge of light from sharp objects in electrical fields, seemed unlikely. They didn't believe they were hallucinating because of battle fatigue, and because the lights caused no damage, the pilots doubted that they came from remote-controlled German secret weapons. St. Elmo's fire, a discharge of light from sharp objects in electrical fields, seemed unlikely since the Foo Fighters exhibited such extreme maneuverability. So that is the Foo Fighters from World War II. Thoughts on the Foo Fighters? To me, it's kind of like they said, it doesn't seem like it would be a St. Elmo's fire issue because of the fact that they were there for so long. Let me see. All right, so I'm going to give a quick little definition because I wasn't aware of what it was fully before this, and I'm not sure you are, but St. Elmo's fire is a weather phenomenon in which luminous plasma is created by a corona discharge from a rod-like object, such as a mast, spire, chimney, or animal horn, in an atmospheric electrical field. It has also been observed on the leading edges of airplanes, as in the case of British Airways Flight 009. The intensity of the effect, a blue or violet glow around the object, often accompanied by a hissing or buzzing sound, is proportional to the strength of the electric field, and therefore noticeably primarily during thunderstorms or volcanic eruptions. St. Elmo's fire is named after Saint Erasmus of Formia, also known as St. Elmo, the patron saint of sailors. The phenomenon which can warn of an imminent lightning strike was regarded by sailors with awe and sometimes considered to be a good omen. This article says Elmo's fire looks a lot like blue lightning, but it's not actually lightning at all. It can be described as an electrical discharge, blue glow, or a plasma. This rare phenomena is often seen on ships. Yeah. We get it. So the picture, it's not a ball of light. It's definitely like stranded out like lightning bolts. Yeah, definitely for the most part looks like, in the pictures I'm looking at here, it definitely looks like lightning more than balls of light. So yeah, I'm leaning away from the St. Elmo's fire thought, much like most of the airmen. And I remember reading one of the articles was talking about how the airmen weren't tired. They weren't overworked or whatever. It was just, so the fatigue one was something that didn't seem like a good, but I don't know. I think they said when they had interviewed them, they checked out with their mental health and their physical health. And it was like, these were people that weren't suffering from extreme exhaustion or something. I don't know. Could be anything. Let's be honest. I don't have normally I'll have an idea. Like, this seems like the most reasonable explanation, but like all the explanations given don't really seem to fit the bill of these balls of fire they're talking about. Which is why the Fuhrer ball is probably the most as out there as it sounds, seems the most on point explanation of what it could be, even though there's no evidence backing it. So no, I won't even say that is a likely answer for what it was, because I don't think we believe that even the Nazis, who, like I said, had the advanced weaponry and everything, and had some of their top scientists working on the Nazi secret weapons, which, I don't know, I think going into the Nazis and looking into their weapons and their impact in World War II would be an interesting search to go on, see some of the weapons that they had developed during the World War II and stuff, because I know they were mixing a lot of things trying to get the best weapons. But yeah, I don't know. None of the explanations or answers seem like reasonable of what the Foo Fighters could be. I don't know, and it's just, you never really, I don't know. It seems like usually when there's UFO sightings listed and stuff, they talk about problems with like mechanical engines or things running on power. Like usually if it kills cell phones, it'll kill your car if it's and then everything will work fine once it leaves. But these things were following the airplanes for 30 minutes at a time, like, and with no issues to the flying. It was just they couldn't outmaneuver them, they couldn't shoot them. And it didn't say it was like on the wing of the plane, or it just said they were following them. I don't know. I really don't know. Of course I want to believe that it was alien technology and the aliens were following them and everything. But even with the information we have, that doesn't seem like the most likely of answers. So maybe, just maybe, they were meant to remain a mystery. But yeah, this is what kind of sparked us looking more to the sky and the government getting more involved with what was going on in their aerospace. So I thought I was going to do a two-part thing, but actually I think the next episode might just be a little bit longer episode than normal, because we're going to go with two very popular UFO stories or sightings or whatever, or I may be surprised and the information I have on the first one is enough for another episode. But I try to keep it around 45 minutes to an hour. So right now we're almost at the hour mark. So I just want to make sure we're not going super long today. All right, so I guess we'll go ahead and close up the podcast here. Thank you very much for checking out and listening today. If you enjoyed it, please tell a friend, share it on your social media, just get it out there. The more we share it, the more it becomes visible, I guess. And the more people that can find it and enjoy listening to the same things we enjoy listening to, and I enjoy talking about. As far as the podcast social medias, if you want to find any of those, you can go to Linktree. We have our own little Linktree, which is linktr.ee/DOTU podcast. That's Linktree/DOTU podcast. Yeah, everything's on there. All the listening platforms we're available on. YouTube channel, Patreon, that's a thing. If you'd like to support the podcast, if you enjoy listening and like to help me get a little bit better equipment, the only thing I'm really vying for right now is a better camera. You can support us for as little as $1 a month. I'm also on TikTok, Vimeo. We're on Anchor, which if you're looking to make a podcast, I personally go through anchor.fm to make the podcast. I edit it separately in Audacity, which is a free audio software program. And if you like the audio quality, it seems to work well for the podcast. But I upload everything through Doors the Universe, or through Anchor FM. Also on Instagram and Twitter. And also, if you haven't, check out We Don't Talk Politics podcast. That is another podcast I'm part of. It's been a little while since we've released anything, but we are still together. It's just, I know with our time change, me moving out to the West Coast and the other two guys still being in the Midwest, it's the 2-hour time difference makes a difference, and just schedules in general. I know I am overly busy currently, which is why you're getting a delayed release of this episode, because I was trying to do bi-weekly, but I think we'll get back on track here now. But yeah, that's everything's on. I always said I was going to just get the link tree and then give out the link tree address just so I didn't have to go through and talk about every other social media we have. But yeah, and I always end up just talking about the social medias anyway. So either way, linked linktr.ee/DOTU podcast, where you'll find everything. But yeah, please like, follow, support, rate us. I don't know why, but Apple Podcasts, if you rate on there, it is a big thing for the podcast as far as growing its popularity and spreading it. So thank you for checking in today. I hope you've enjoyed learning about the Foo Fighters of World War II as much as I have. And like I said, this is just the first part of the series working its way up to Project Blue Book, which was the fact that there's so much information up to Project Blue Book, which is, 1948, I believe. Yeah, it's just crazy how much unidentified aerial phenomena is out there, and that has been around for a while. So I usually end the podcast with like saying keep an eye to the sky and then something clever, but I mean the whole episode was about keeping an eye to the sky. So until next time, keep an eye to the sky and watch out for the Fuhrer balls.